Good morning. I am Professor Yahalom. I'm from Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York. I'm also the founder and chairman of ILROG, and I really appreciate the honor and the invitation by Professor Riccardi to tell you about ILROG, about the International Lymphoma Radiation Oncology Group, and use it as an example for the title of translating partnership into optimal health. And I have no conflict of interest. And I just want to start by telling you that ILROG was established in 2010 as a non-for-profit organization incorporated in the United States, but with officers from both continents. The goal was obviously to improve patient care, and as part of it, our vision was that by strengthening the role of radiation oncology in hematological malignancy, we will help to accomplish it. We also saw that it is important to educate radiation oncologists about lymphoma and hematological malignancies and educate medical oncologists about radiation oncology for lymphoma. We, over the years, conducted multi-center and multi-country research studies that I will mention. And more recently, and I will mention that at the end, we addressed the current issue of providing radiotherapy during the COVID-19 pandemic to hematologically malignancies patients. 10 years after we established the organization, we have over 1,500 members across the globe. You see the colors indicate the density. This is not a COVID incidence map, but ILROG membership. So we have members from 73 countries, and we are organized with a leadership of 30 people that represent the main cancer centers in the world. We have 60 council members. These are more the younger future leaders. So if you see on the map with the colors, we have about half of our membership in the United States, with many members in Canada, in Australia, in India, in China, and of course in Europe, with relatively high numbers in the Netherlands, in Denmark, and in the United Kingdom, and of course in Italy, thanks to the efforts of Professor Riccardi. Just to give some history to those who are not familiar with what happened with lymphoma over the years, just because they are too young. And in the 60s, we know the era of radiation therapy alone, and it can cure almost every stage, it was perceived, as long as we use a lot of radiation to a large field, and it was called radical radiotherapy. In the 70s, chemotherapy came along, and we did a lot of combined modality, and we did a lot of each modality trying to cure more patients. Not surprisingly, 20 years later, we see late side effect concerns, complication, even death. And as a result of it, there is increasing scare directed primarily toward radiation therapy, and many, for a variety of reasons, try to reduce the role of radiation therapy in this program. In the the beginning of the century, we have many randomized studies. This is before PET, both in Hodgkin lymphoma and in the non-Hodgkin lymphoma. And usually the randomized studies are asking the role of radiation therapy, most actually showing a significant advantage to using radiation, but this is before PET. And when PET becomes more popular, and then we have studies that include PET, then the question is if PET is negative, maybe we don't need radiation therapy. And that is, I think, the issues that we see more recently. Also, we see many more drugs, especially in Hodgkin lymphoma, and many ways to salvage the patients, including CAR T cells. So the whole scene is changing, and we always remember that no matter what we have now, new drugs and new ideas, but radiation remains the most effective single agent in the treatment of lymphoma, and this is a leader in medical oncology, very famous in the United States, Jim Armitage has said. But that is not taken for granted. Many people challenge it. For example, I had to write an article that refuted some of the concerns and the suggestion to exclude radiation therapy from the treatment of all Hodgkin lymphoma, and I titled it "Don't Throw Out the Baby with the Bathwater," and it addressed the issues of toxicity and efficacy. If we kind of do a quick check of when do we use radiation, or when we could use radiation in lymphomas, and this is according to the NCCN guidelines, I would say that 60% of the patient, at least in localized Hodgkin lymphoma, should get radiation in a combined modality setting. About 30% are early stage diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. Follicular lymphoma, especially a limited stage, are treated and cured with radiation therapy alone. So is 80% of marginal zone lymphoma. And of course, there are multiple other less common lymphomas that I won't go into. And then what's becoming a very common theme for people who treat hematological malignancies is the salvage of chemo-refractory or relapse disease. Unfortunately, every database that you look at of thousands of patients with the standard classical indication for radiation will show over the years a decrease in the use of radiation therapy as a primary treatment and consolidative treatment. We see it in Hodgkin, when people give chemotherapy alone, in aggressive non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and even in indolent lymphoma follicular and marginal, the people try to give rituximab or just observe the patient, all kind of ideas that we can have special discussions of their merit. What we see in return is an increase in the number of patients referred to radiation for salvage, for palliation, or as I call it, en route to hospice, and everything was tried and failed with systemic treatment. As a result of it, we see a decrease in lymphoma training and exposure of young faculty in radiation oncology. And what we see with our colleagues, they become more and more ignorant about the radiation therapy in hematological malignancy and its potential. We also, in the same decade that a lot of things are changing, we have noticed, of course, I mentioned more effective chemotherapy regimens and an effort to develop new chemotherapy regimen, and sometimes the selling point of the pharma company that are getting stronger and stronger is, oh, we can get rid of radiation therapy, so let's add this new agent. And again, the association of radiation with toxicity as a result of giving radiation in a very radical way 50 or so years ago. We see that radiation therapy has changed a lot. We moved to much smaller fields, from mantle cell of the 80s to involved field in the 90s, and now the involved site treatment that emerged from the involved nodal treatment. The doses are significantly down, about 50% of the doses that we used in the past. And if you just look at for indolent lymphoma, for example, when standard was 45, and reduced to 24 based on a randomized study, and now many patients can get a lot of benefit from only 4 gray of radiation. So because of all these changes and what we felt is a declining role of radiation, a group of us leaders from different countries that got together. This is from our first leadership meeting in Copenhagen around 2000, and we decided that the most important mission is to improve the outcome and educate the people. And the best thing for us to do is to write new guidelines of how we deal with the different hematological malignancies. And we started in 2014 with guidelines for Hodgkin lymphoma, and continued with almost every aspect we have covered, from extranodal to skin to pediatric, and more than 15 guidelines, including Atlas, and these have became very popular publications, most of them in the Red Journal, and we can see that in 2016 and so far, and from 2015 and on till 2019, the ILROG guidelines were some of the most popular downloaders from the Red Journal. We also had a special issue of the Red Journal devoted to only lymphoma and radiation papers. That was in conjunction with our major annual meeting in New York. We also penetrated the holy grail of publication in hematology, that the journal Blood, that normally will not take anything from radiation oncology. Here are 4 publications, the more recent one on COVID era, but another very important one on the use of protons, as you know, is quite controversial, and a collaboration in treating early mantle cell lymphoma and follicular lymphomas. So basically, if you are interested in finding information on how to treat in the modern era, you have all these ILROG guidelines available to you. So in addition to doing all this work, we have conducted on the educational side annual international courses. We have done in nice places in the time we could travel. In Copenhagen, London, in Houston, in New York we had a major meeting, in Torino, in Boston, Paris, Melbourne, Tokyo, and if not for COVID, we would have had one this year in Toronto and next year in Mumbai. We'll have to wait probably. The other thing that is quite amazing to people who follow is the dramatic increase in hematological malignancies scientific and educational sessions in ESTRO. For example, we started with half a session together with sarcoma to 4, 5, and more sessions in recent ESTRO meetings. We have sessions in the famous Lugano meeting, in the Cologne Hodgkin meeting, in JASTRO, and finally, thanks I think to the effort of Professor Riccardi, we are also have more visibility in ESTRO. We have established the ESTRO School of Hematology. We ran 4 courses that were very popular. We did an Astro Hematology Symposium and have done teaching courses in Beijing, in Seoul, and in Mumbai. We have a research collaboration committee that is very active and quite productive. We have a resident education committee. We have offer a lot of rotation and supplemental training, especially in North America for trainees that don't have strong lymphoma programs. And now a very active, very intensively active task force on radiation therapy and CAR T cell salvage, and you heard earlier or a talk about that. Then I will just mention that we got together very early in March with the concerns that emerged first in Italy and later all over the world, and of course in China about COVID, and it raised the question of how we should treat patients at the time where perhaps more radiation is needed because it's more risky to give systemic therapy. We have a very active and now reformatted website that has a lot of information and resources in it. We have just started a YouTube channel for ILROG, when you can hear a lot of discussions and lectures and past lectures. This is just starting these days. So I mentioned that we got together the experts from several countries, from China to Italy to United States and England and Denmark, Australia, and we agreed on new ways to deal with patients that needs radiation for lymphomas and myeloma at the time of COVID, and we want to shorten their exposure. So we did several hypofractionated regimens. It became very popular and so far appear to be safe. We have a table that one can go to and see if I need to give 30 gray consolidation that I normally will do in 15 treatments. How can I condense it into less treatment, and all the factors and the equivalency and the sites that these team of experts came to a consensus of what we can recommend. So if you want to get more, then the best is to join ILROG as a member. It's very simple. You can do it through ilrog.org or ilrog.com. And you'll find the way to join, so you get more information. You can also apply to be more active in the councils. There's some requirements, and you can check that out. And I encourage you to take the benefit from everything that we have done over the last 10 years and become one of our community. So I hope yeah, I could illustrate to you that by having a successful international organization, we can influence the quality of care that we provide to our patients, and we hope we can continue to contribute with your help. So thank you very much for inviting me and taking the time to listen to my talk. Have a safe year, and hopefully all will be over with COVID soon. Thank you.